I feel like a lot of it was rehashing questions from earlier in the week, unfortunately. I don't know if that's because new media has arrived and was listening for the first time, but there's a couple questions that were just kind of recycled questions, in my opinion. So there was part of it that, didn't really grasp a whole lot out of. But, the note on Estrada was obviously something that matters because he's a really good player, and he's a guy that can be a bit of a safety valve for them at times, and a guy who – quite frankly, really has never been able to shake loose the way we thought that he might be able to. They always try to run the little, end arounds or, those types of plays with him, and those have not really done anything, but that might be part of the chess matches, setting that up to set something else up for Jeff Grimes. I don't know, but he is a weapon. And maybe not as much of a weapon as we thought he would be, but he's somebody given this receiving core that I won't have in the lineup because he's the number 2 receiver this year.
Yep.
He's the number 2 guy behind Tyquan Thornton. R.J. Sneed, I'd say, is the number 3 guy. R.J. Sneed's the type of guy who I think has to have a really big game tomorrow night, or the timing would be fantastic for him to have a really big game tomorrow night. So, I think having Estrada there is something that's big news for Baylor.
Yeah, and R.J. Sneed has been around, has made some plays, but it really has kind of moved backwards as far as his production after, of course, last year being their best wide receiver. So earlier today, Dave Aranda, the last time we'll hear from him before they play Baylor and Ole Miss tomorrow night here in New Orleans in the Sugar Bowl, the All-State Sugar Bowl, on many things Baylor and Ole Miss and the Sugar Bowl.
When looking at the tape from Ole Miss's offense, what sticks out to you the most about their offense that could pose problems for you? And when it comes to Matt Corral, what do you see from him, and do you think he could be a good QB at the next level?
Appreciate the question. When I look at their offense, I see the success on the first play of the drive, the new and 10 play. And so the study that we did with that would be, if Ole Miss has 4 or more yards on that new and 10 play, they're scoring touchdowns 50% of the time in those drives. They're scoring, period, 60-some% of the time. If that new and 10 play goes for 3 or less yards, they're scoring, 20-some% of the time. They're scoring touchdowns 15% of the time. And so, it just shows that once they get going, it's very hard to stop with the tempo and the play selection and their athletes in space. And so there is some more time allotted for us, specifically for this game as a defense, to adjust for that and to practice that. And we're hoping that helps, I think the ability to keep it simple and so that we can line up and have some success on our one-on-ones is really what it's going to come down to, And then when I look at Matt Corral, I just see a competitor. I see a winner. I see someone that wills his team. I think in today's age, a guy his caliber, staying with it and playing in this game, I think speaks a lot. And so excited to be able to see him. Just love college football and love competitors, and I think he's a great one.
Coach, just in terms of, I know earlier in the week you had mentioned that Gary was progressing and looking better and better and back to his old self. So in that same vein, is there a definitive yes or no to whether or not he'll be starting tomorrow?
Appreciate the question. Yeah, Gary will start, and he's been, I think from when we started, the practice prep for this game, it's the first time really he has opened up. The first time he was transferring weight, and I think so. With that became some adjustments that he had to make because he was maybe trying to protect or maybe not sure, or he had to relearn kind of the correct fundamentals and all of it. And so there was some of that. Really, that was the first week, though. And I think since then it's just progressed. And, last week really had a great week. And then this week it's like, we're in week 5 or week 6. It's like he never left. And, yesterday was just way impressive. He's been open up running full speed, showing burst, showing change direction, making throws from one hash to the far sideline. So excited for him. There's a look in his eye, and I know his heart's on fire too. So excited for his opportunity, and I know he's ready for it.
I'm sorry, I think you touched on this loosely here, but regarding opt-outs for these games, what has allowed you guys to remain intact? And would you be in favor of some type of structure that kind of really encouraged players or held them more accountable to play in these bowl games?
No, that's a good question. I appreciate that. I think for us, it starts all the way back with just recruiting and, finding and, I guess, first of all, just knowing the type of program that you want to be, then finding kids that align with that program and parents as well. And then I think, talking your values and, more importantly, living out your values. And then when you get your kids on campus, it's really spend the time to get to know them. And I just feel like there's been programs I've been in and staffs I've been on where and I've been a part and parcel of this too. So there's been a for sure growth just with me of where you can just be so focused on ball and so focused on the wins and losses that you don't really see, hear, or value the people that are doing it for you. And I think that leads to that leads to bad things. And so I think to keep the focus on the people and to see your people and to do your best to hear them out is is what we try to do, and I know a lot of folks try to do. I think even with that being said, you've got family members, you've got third parties that maybe if there's a reality on the field, there's a different version of it that they're seeing, and so then that's coming into play. And so I think it's a difficult situation. I think all that we can do is really try to get a right fit for who we are and get to know your people, continue to see them in the ups and downs and appreciate them because it's really a player's game.
Hey, Dave, obviously Ole Miss offense puts a lot of stress on your defense. Does it also put a little stress on the offense to keep up or answer?
That's a good question. I think, your question is really, I see it as just so different, such a difference in styles, right? And so I think if I were to put your question that way, right, I think it's just very important for us to be us and for us to not, get out of our lane of what we do well. And so I think, offensively for us, to move the ball and run the ball, establish line of scrimmage, to get the eighth and ninth guy involved in the box, and so that there are opportunities for big pass plays behind them, to use movement in the pocket and get our quarterback out on the perimeter where there's a run or throw option. And then I think the ability to use motion shifts to try to get the looks or the adjustments that we want. I think those things will lead to, those are kind of process things that I think will lead to the results or outcome that we're hoping for. But we have to execute that stuff well, and we really can't get outside of that lane. We're going to have to score in the red zone. I think that's going to be a huge piece. And, when a couple weeks back when we're really working and kind of humming right on offense, we were finishing drives and scoring touchdowns. And I think, these